Hey guys, I got a brand new video for you today, and today we're looking at the Sony a6300. And you're like, Lee, why would you do another video on the Sony a6300? Well, let me tell you. We've got a new firmware update on this thing, and it brings it up to firmware version 2.0, and that is supposed to add the extended temperature to it so that you can flip that on and shoot for longer without this thing overheating. As you know, if you've been following my channel, this was actually the first camera that I actually reviewed on this channel, which kind of started it all last year. And since then, I've kind of been doing overheating videos on it, just doing tests during different firmwares and against other cameras and stuff like that. Because while I was making my review, I didn't know that this thing was going to overheat, and I actually was using this to film the review and to shut off midway through the review. And that was when I was like, oh, we have a problem. And obviously over the time of having this camera, I know what it's capable of and how long it can record for. And generally, depending on the temperature, if I'm in like a warmer area, I'm gonna get like 15 to 25 minutes before it overheats. And if I'm in like a moderate temperature, like in a room like this right now where it's, I don't know, 22, 23 degrees, it's not super hot, you know, this thing's gonna probably run like half an hour or something like that. But what I wanna do is I wanna set like a baseline with this thing, so I'm gonna do a video testing the temperature on this thing and how long it can run for before I install the firmware, just to get another baseline test, since I haven't done one for probably a year. And I got the FLIR thermal camera that can plug into the iPhone, and I can use that to monitor the temperatures. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip the screen out like I normally do, and just kind of record the back of the camera here and see like in between where the screen and the body is, and just see what the temperatures are and when that overheating light comes on, and then when it actually shuts off, and we'll get a temperature reading. And then I'll put the new firmware on it, and then I'll run the extended temp option, and then I'll do the same thing, monitor the temperatures, see how much longer it can run for. I'm probably not gonna go forever. If this thing does go forever, I'm just gonna go to the end of the battery, because that's a good indication of how long you can actually get out of one battery. Anyway, I'm gonna shut up now, and we'll do our first test before we install the firmware, and then we'll come back, install the firmware, and then try this thing in the exact same settings. And I might go outside just so that we can get some more heat on this thing, because sometimes, you know, you might want to be filming outdoors in the sun, and you obviously get way less performance out of this thing when the sun starts cooking the body of this camera. So anyway, let's get started. All right, so getting a baseline temperature, the camera's around 28 degrees Celsius, 27 degrees Celsius. The room is actually around 23 degrees Celsius, but we'll start from that. The temperature could be a little bit higher just because of maybe me setting up the camera. So just speeding through this here, I'm gonna periodically check the temperature every 10 minutes. So we're coming up on our first 10 minutes here of recording in 4K. And we got a temperature of around 40 degrees Celsius, which is around like 106 or something like that degrees Fahrenheit. No temp indicator yet. We're sitting around 50 to 51 degrees Celsius now in the back. Depends kind of where you are, but I changed the look here on the camera just so you can see it a little bit better. Now in at 22 minutes. The temp indicator came on around 24, 23 minutes, and we're hitting a little over 50 now, like 53 degrees Celsius. And as you know, these cameras can only record up to 30 minutes anyway, and then you have to hit restart. But around 29 minutes and 35 seconds, it actually overheated. Okay, so now that we have a controlled baseline temperature, let's go to the website and download the firmware. I'll put a link in the description. I'm doing this through Windows. And this is version 2, coming from 1.1. And basically it just tells you what things have been updated, and the extended temp is one of the new things that's been added. So we're going to download this, and once it's finished, you're going to run it. It extracts something, and then it opens up its own little updater app, and it's going to ask you to connect the camera. So you have to take your USB and plug it into the camera and turn the camera on. Once the camera's on, it'll detect it, and you can hit next and just follow the prompts. We're going to go from 1.1 to 2.0. This takes roughly 3 minutes, something like that. Anyway, to turn auto temp on, you go to the toolbox, page 3, and set it to high. It's going to warn you that it's going to raise the temperature, and you hit OK. And we'll start our next test. So get our baseline temperature of the camera around 30 degrees Celsius, and we're going to start it now. And again, just like before, I'm going to check the temperature every 10 minutes. So we're coming up on the first 10 minutes here, and I'm hitting around 44, 45 degrees Celsius. Coming up on the first 20 minutes here, we're hitting around 40 to 50. It's kind of all over the place depending on where I hold it, but it's definitely around 50 like it was before. Felt the top of the camera a couple times to see if it was getting really hot, but we hit our first 30 minutes and I'm restarting it now. I'd like to mention that there's no temperature warnings coming on yet, and we're up to around 50 minutes of filming. Battery life slowly going down now because the battery's getting really hot, around like 53, 54 degrees, so it's about 4 to 5 degrees hotter than when it would normally shut off. We're over a whole hour now. And the battery drained. So we got roughly almost an hour and 13 minutes out of one battery without overheating. So let's try this outdoor. So it was actually a pretty hot day outside. The camera just sitting in the sun was already around 40 degrees. So we'll start the test. Temperature warning came on almost before 7 minutes. We're hitting 51 degrees on the back of the camera. Temperature warning stays on. And it almost made it 9 minutes before overheating. All right, guys, so as you can tell, the firmware fixed this thing. It actually can run way longer. Obviously, it's not fixing it, it's just extending the temperature. And you can tell from our tests that the temperatures were getting quite a bit higher before the thermals were even reached. I don't even think the overheating light came on at all, but it was definitely well beyond where the overheating light was on the old firmware and was shutting off. So obviously they've done something to extend the temperature. I don't know if that's gonna destroy the camera in the long run. Obviously it's getting way hotter, but you know, indoors it seemed to last quite a bit longer than what I've ever had it ever last, to be honest. Obviously outdoors it overheated quickly, but I've had it overheat way faster than 10 minutes in the sun before, so maybe it kind of helped a little bit. Really all it's doing is allowing Sony to allow this thing to take on more heat. Maybe they're not as worried about it now because they've got other cameras out. It does work, and you know, I still love this camera. I've wanted it to just die on me, and so I can say, screw it, I don't want to deal with this thing anymore because it overheats all the time. It's actually been crazy reliable, and you know, I've made a lot of money with this little tiny camera, and I still would recommend this as kind of like a run and gun system for you if you wanted something with good 4K video and good autofocus, because that's the main reason why I still have it. It's paid itself off, doesn't owe me anything, and I continue to use it once in a while. It's definitely good for like a B cam during interviews or getting B-roll and stuff like that. It does have quite a bit of issues with rolling shutter, but you know, I use it on the gimbal and it kind of helps eliminate some of that rolling shutter. But basically, now that it has the extended temperature, I would still recommend this over the a6300 just because you get same image quality, same autofocus, extended temps now. The a6300 does have in-body stabilization to help with some of the shakes. It does have a touchscreen, but to me, I don't really know if that's worth the extra $400. It might be to you, but you know, for $1,000 US, this camera is a beast. And now that it has the extended temp, I don't have to really complain too much about it overheating, especially indoors. If you're outdoors, well, it's still gonna overheat. Right now I have the small rig cage on this. I've had this on for a while. Kind of just beefs the camera up and protects it and makes it look less puny and wimpy. And if you want to know where I got one of these, I'll put a link in the description. I'm also going to put a link in the description where you can download the new firmware if you have an a6300 and want to update that. Anyway, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give it a thumbs down twice. I'll see you in the next one.